All right, welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now, after listening to your views during the phone-in segment, we now take the conversation a step further with a deeper analysis. Let's get right into it. Now, this is the discussion segment on Daybreak, and our focus remains on the topic 2025 Coup Plot, analysing implications for democratic governance. Now, the alleged 2025 coup plot has once again raised fundamental questions about the strength of Nigeria's democracy, civil-military relations, and the resilience of our institutions. Now, while Nigeria has enjoyed over 2 decades of uninterrupted civilian rule, recent developments, both at home and across part of Africa, remind us that democracy cannot be taken for granted. Beyond the immediate security concerns, the coup plot has implications for public trust in government, the professionalism of the armed forces, constitutional order, and Nigeria's image on the global stage. It also forces us to reflect on governance challenges such as economic pressure, political inclusion, accountability, and how these factors can either strengthen or weaken democratic stability. Now, to help us unpack these critical issues, we're joined by Brigadier General Sani Usman Kukasheka, retired former Director of Army Public Relations. General Kukasheka is a public relations consultant, author, and respected public affairs commentator with deep insight into military affairs and democratic governance. He'll be sharing his views on what the 2025 coup plot means for Nigeria's democracy and the lessons going forward. Thank you for joining us this morning on Daybreak.
Good morning to both of you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Now, General Kukasheka, given the recent confirmation by Nigeria's defense headquarters that several military officers will face trial over allegations of plotting a coup in 2025, how would you assess the integrity and credibility of the military's internal investigations process that led to this conclusion, given to the fact that there were earlier official denials of any coup attempt, with the defense headquarters calling such reports false and misleading? Can you help us unpack why there seemed to be a gap between initial public messages and later admission of an attempted coup plot?
Now, first and foremost, thank you so much and good morning. I can understand the concern. Nigeria had the unfortunate experience of military governance and its consequences over time. And from 1999 upward, democratic governance has come to stay. And so it's more or less like taking everyone by surprise, coup plot, despite all these things. So, and even the military itself, even though there were instances I could remember when I was in the service, first way back, 2007, before the doctrine of necessity and all the rest, when late President Umar Musa Yar'Adua was sick, the political atmosphere was charged and all the rest of the thing. Then 2017, there were, some officers that were alleged to be hobnobbing with some political classes. So given the fact that Nigeria has been enjoying uninterrupted democratic governance, and of course the constitution is very clear, any change of government has to be through the constitution, and of course through the general elections, usually that comes in 4 years. So for you to have a group of people to be suspected of that, it took almost everybody by surprise. But it's not surprising because sometimes, again, you cannot have a perfect system somehow, and that is the essence of what makes Nigerian society, the kind of divergence in terms of issues and all the rest of them. Then, of course, it has grievous implication to, and I like the intro, by the way, that you have said, because you have said it all in the sense that constitutional governance, civil-military relations, and displaying professionalism and all the rest, for a military officer to think of, overthrowing a democratically elected government that has been there, and it makes nonsense of the transformation program that the military was subjected for over 15 years, between 2000 to 2015. A lot of people do not know that. To, position the military to be subordinated to democratic authorities, there was a transformation program for 15 years for the members of the armed forces.
You're saying there was a reorientation of the military in order for them to align with democratic governance.
And part of my argument that time, even though the proponent of it was that you cannot reorient in isolation with the Nigerian society. Given the experience we have had, beyond the military itself, the Nigerian society ought to have been reoriented to the nuances of democratic governance. Otherwise, to me, we wouldn't have had the conflicts we have had in the early 2000s. You remember, those of you that came from the north, Kaduna was no-go area and all the rest. The burning, the killings and all the rest. It was burnt up emotion. And I did mean that there was, during the transition program, Nigerians were made to understand that democracy is a question of give and take, and you have to be patient. You have to understand that there is bureaucracy involved. But at the end of the day, you always get the result, even though the majority will always have, even the minority will have their say, even though the majority will have their way. So basically, had it been that we orient the Nigerian society, possibly we might not have that. And part of the problem we have, even, beyond the military institutions, there are other institutions, particularly in the security architecture. For instance, what sort of policing system do we really want for Nigeria in going forward in democracy? To what extent have we invested in the policing system in terms of equipment, training, and intellect to meet up with the challenges of the 21st century? So these are the kind of things. So when you put all these things together, but of course, just like you rightly said, at the beginning of your program, and we cannot preempt things as it were. Now that they are going to be arraigned before a competent court, maybe a court martial, so let's hear from them what motivates them to, embark on such venture.
I was actually getting to that, having an understanding that, yes, we do have a democratic rule and we do have the military. Now, from a professional military perspective, I was going to say from a lot of Nigerians would want to ask the question, what might be the structural or cultural factors within the Nigerian armed force that could lead some officers to contemplate such extreme actions against a constitutional government, especially this particular government?
Well, it could be a lot of factors. Remember at the beginning, and that is why way back 3 months ago or so, in October 2025, and I believe that was one of the reasons that must have informed whether actually it was, an attempt to topple the government unconstitutionally, or it is part of act of indiscipline through grumblings and all the rest. And when you look at the trajectory, there were issues about dissatisfaction in terms of career. If you recall in the previous statement, that was it. But eventually, as time goes on and investigation continued to unravel with other facts, that they came to the understanding of what the defense headquarters conclude yesterday by issuing a statement through the Director of Defense Information. So basically, there could be some of those things. And one thing people fail to understand is that, like, the military is a unique profession in the sense that, that if need be, you can lay down your life for the well-being of the Nigerian society. So that is the highest sacrifice you could give, unlike any other professional group. Now, if you can do that, definitely you are subjected to so many other things that will impinge on your rights, privileges, and comfort, as it were. Again, there are issues in respect of career planning, sometimes even ambition. There is nothing wrong in being ambitious to aspire to, greater, heights in the course of your career, but it has to be within the limit. So inordinate ambition, that is where, again, it becomes something else. So by the time it's inordinate, automatically you are circumventing the system to achieve certain things that under normal circumstances, if God willing, you will definitely go to that extent. So basically these are some of the things possibly, but of course, like I said, as time goes on in the course of the trial, you will hear more from them. Why, what is it, and what brought about this dissatisfaction to the extent of going this whole hog to think of, overthrowing a democratic government.
I wanted to take you back a little bit because I asked this question that the military and the government, the federal government, strongly debunked, the allegations of a coup attempt in 2025. Why do you think, from a professional military standpoint, do you think that there would be a strong, denial of this coup attempt up until now that they came out and said, yes, this really happened?
I don't speak for the government, but the truth is that you work with the facts available to you sometime, and that is why it is always better to hold your peace to when the facts have made manifestly clear, as it were now. Initially, there were, suspicion, and in the course of investigation, such suspicions were confirmed. So it was quite sad and unfortunate that there were, divergent statement. But as time goes on, again, I think it has to do with issue of management of information, particularly public information, and of course document security, because we have had instances, I could recall vividly, there were certain media trials, in the course of investigation, as it were, alleging that so-so person or so has been tasked to eliminate a particular government official and all the rest. As such things shouldn't be. I think we should always be mindful of the implication of such things, in the sense that unless if the facts are made clear, and in any case, this is democracy, and given the fact that we operate rule of law, it is only the competent court of jurisdiction that will determine somebody whether he's guilty or not. Although there could be allegations, you can suspect someone and all the rest of the thing, and I think we should give the court or the process benefit of doubt to determine the propriety of all these things, or otherwise, as the case may be.
General Kukasheka, you once led the Army Public Communications, and then when we see, disciplinary actions being taken involving senior officers, and it becomes public, in the public domain, Nigerians are following closely on this case. What level of transparency should, citizens expect in a democratic system, having this case on ground?
I think this is a litmus case, and I am sure the military and the government are quite aware of the overwhelming interest by Nigerians. You have had it even when you open your, phone lines and the rest of them. The truth is that they know that everybody is watching, and there is assurance, even with the statement, that the trial will be fair and the procedures will be followed. And I know that given the fact that this is more or less something that is happening in a democratic government, so the various mechanism will be put in place, and you can see the painstaking effort to investigate it, and I'm so sure by the time they come to prosecution, definitely they will have their facts clear. And beyond that, again, I know that in the process of nominating or appointing the members of the court martial to try them, the appropriate people will be selected to constitute its membership. Then, of course, there are legal framework that they have to follow. The Constitution is very clear. The Armed Forces Act, terms and conditions of services and all the rest of them. And, of course, they will have the benefit of, their own defense lawyers that will definitely be there with them, so much as the military or the government will have its own lawyers, prosecutors, judge advocates, and all the rest of them. And I am so sure they will be forthright in, continuously updating the public in the case of, in the course of the trial. But one thing is clear: there is need for, fairness and transparency in the course of trying these 16 people that has been suspected for coup plotting.
This one.
All right. Now, as you mentioned that there is a need for fairness when it comes to this trial. Now, how do military justice processes balance the need for accountability with fair trials, right, especially when political stakes are high? And a lot would ask, should there be a greater civilian oversight or paramilitary inquiry into alleged coup planning, or would that risk politicizing security affairs further?
Yeah, I think there will be, mechanism to ensure, that the trial is devoid of any influence, regardless of the fact that everybody is pissed up, in the sense that it's unimaginable to think of overthrowing a, democratically elected government by a military officer, as it were. But sentiment aside, we just have to look at it dispassionately on the basis of the facts on the ground, that people were alleged to have committed an offense. If the facts are there, there is no hassle and bustle about it. They let the course of the law, let the law take its own course. But beyond that, I know that being democratic governance now, as it were, there won't be any influence, regardless of what it is. And I'm so sure those who will conduct the trial are people of impeccable, character and integrity. And of course, the laws are very clear about it. And of course, the powers of such court-martial, as it were, is equivalent to that of a state high court. But beyond that, again, there is room for appeal. But even before the appeal, there is issue of confirmation by the council. And now that it is an offense, it is not just maybe murder or simple mutiny and all the rest of them, that is allegation of coup plot. Definitely the confirmation authority would be higher than the Army Council or the respective services council, as it were. And in the course of doing that, there will be other, mechanisms in place to ensure that it is free and it is fair. It is not just that they are kind of influenced by the political atmosphere in the country, or devoid of any extraneous variables, as it is.
Right. Now, we've seen coups and coup attempts occurring in neighboring countries such as Benin and Guinea-Bissau, and Nigeria even contributing troops in regional responses. What broader implications does this trend have for West Africa's democratic resilience?
I think the broader implication is that, first and foremost, coup is an anathema, given the fact that we have been enjoying uninterrupted democratic governance in this country. Anybody who is contemplating, overthrowing the government undemocratically, I think he has a Herculean task. In fact, it is not possible. And I said it even when I was in service. And with the benefit of hindsight, the fact that people failed to understand the armed forces that we have in this country. There's so much, apart from the transformation program, people have, the armed forces are one of the most trained and most enlightened among the components of Nigerian society, because there is hardly a major or equivalent that does not even have a master's degree. So they understand that democratic government is the best form of government, and of course the military is even better off, because if you look at it, hardly within the last 20-something years, hardly the military has requested for anything that they were not given. So when you compare it to the previous instances, that you don't even, you visit your friend because the next thing, in fact, there were instances where people simply because every officer, there is what they call performance evaluation report. It's a kind of report that is written about you or on you annually. And you have, first, you have the reporting officer, who is most likely your immediate boss. Then you have the reviewing officer, who is a bit higher professionally. Take, for instance, if you are a medical doctor deployed to a particular hospital, the commanding officer or the chief medical director is a reporting officer, you're right. But then at the headquarters of the medical corps, again, there is the corps commander who will either confirm or add to that. So there were instances, in fact, if the person by March of the following year, let's say this is 2026, so by March 2026, wherever these performance evaluation reports are supposed to be, must be there. So if the man is delaying in writing such thing because there were certain observed lapses and all the rest, the whole idea, it is not punitive, it's just to give a proper profile of how you are, how you conduct your activities within the areas that you need to improve and all the rest of the thing. Now, sometimes you might even, a suspected coup plotter, for instance, who is your boss, if they see such PER in his car, you become a suspect also. It is as bad as it were in those days. But now it is not the way it is. A diligent investigation has been carried out. And remember, there were not just 16. Quite a number of officers had been invited in the course of this investigation, and they have been released. They have gone back to their units, except, of course, those people that will be, witness to the prosecution. As time goes on, they will call them. So this is it. And then coming to the issue of implication, West Africa. The truth is that the Nigerian military is professional, and they don't profess anything other than democratic government, and they have shown it time without number, being the guardian of constitutional order. I have told you, before the doctrine of necessity and all the rest of them. And there were instances whenever there are misdemeanors, they were always checked in the board. I could remember 2017, I had cause to issue a statement warning some officers, when we realized that their acts have become unbecoming. I was not even in the country at that time. So there are always mechanisms to check. So it's a futile effort. That is number one. But of course, I have seen where you've been talking about all these things, the reasons they have. Unless, of course, we listen to them to understand what are their grievances, or what is the reason, or what is the motive. You cannot say for now unless you listen to them. But the long and short of it is that there is no better way of, changing government beyond the constitutional order as it is. And the armed forces have shown commitment and sincerity of purpose along that line, hence picking out these people that are suspected of attempting, to overthrow the government unconstitutionally. And I think we should give credit to the armed forces for coming out, because it is not easy, because it is demoralizing. You have your friend or your commander now being accused of that. You have been living with someone over time and not knowing who actually he is and all the rest. So these are the kind of things. But the other thing is that, first, anytime you see problems, I think they are just filling a vacuum. And the best recipe against, this kind of things is good governance. Good governance is the key.
So, General, before we wrap up, what do you think are the lessons that the 2025 coup attempt, should teach policymakers about civil-military relations in Nigeria?
Yeah, I have just mentioned it. I talked about good governance. The bulk of the security challenges that we're having, I think, to a large extent, especially the non-state actors, bandits, insurgents, they are just filling a vacuum. When you look at the history of Boko Haram, how it started, they were fighting against malfunction in terms of corruption and all the rest of bad governance and all the rest. And even these bandits, they are just filling a vacuum, because I depend that there is the local government system is working, and there is, greater sense of belonging. Nobody will come and entice you to go into this kind of thing. And even those with criminal tendencies, they will not even go far. The system and the society will check them out. So at the same time, it also has implication on the military that is a futile effort. But to the policymakers, everybody is quite aware of the fact that Nigerians are all united against any unconstitutional, overthrow of government. And to help stem this tide or this kind of thing is to improve on the good governance in this country. And there are so many ways of doing it, improving the well-being of the Nigerian society. ensuring that the three tiers of government are up and doing. I kept on hammering the fact that had it been that the local government, you can imagine there was Supreme Court ruling, and of course there were presidential directives that the local government should remain autonomous and be self-accounting. Bulk of the problems that we're having would have been dealt with at communal level. And the issue of, we're having issue of state police, you know, ad hoc arrangement and all the rest. Go back and check. There is a provision for police council in this country. It's a constitutional provision. How many times has the police council sat, you know, to determine the policing system in this country, and so on and so on. So we have to improve in good governance, you know, strengthening institutions, give Nigerians greater sense of belonging, and I can rest assure you all these things to a large extent will be minimized.
All right, now quickly, in a few seconds if we can, we know that information is very, very important and very vital when it comes to shaping how people think and the narratives, you know, around coup stories. So as someone that has so much experience when it comes to public affairs, public relations as well, how do you think or what role information operations and counter-disinformation strategies and civic education play in preserving democratic legitimacy?
A very, very great and important role. The more enlightened the society is, the easier to govern the society, because each and every one will be conscious of his or her role, you know, in the society and how best they can contribute, and those privileges and rights that are, you know, to them, and they can question their leaders. So they are very, very important, but most importantly, management of information is equally key. And you can see the difference now. The statement of the defense headquarters yesterday was straight to the point. They have investigated, they are going to arraign them, and they want to ensure, I mean, you know, free and fair trial and all the rest of them. So we should give them the benefit of that, and of course they should live up to that word. You know, as time goes on, they should be, you know, updating Nigerians about, you know, the outcome of the trials and so on at each processes, to bearing security and national security consideration. And it is not just this issue in particular. The more you bring people on board in terms of issues, because somebody who is not enlightened, he will take a wrong decision based on the information available to him. Sometimes he will even help you and support you in what you are doing than, you know, doing otherwise.
All right, thank you very much, Brigadier General Sani Usman Kukasheka, retired, for shedding so much light on the recent reports on the attempted coup in 2025. Thank you so much for being here on Daybreak.
Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure too.
All right, that is all we have for the segment. We'll be going on a quick break. When we come back, we'll be looking at the front pages of our national dailies and see what made it there. So make sure you stay tuned. We'll be right back.